Hey, I say hey. Yo, well, I gotta be a super troll. Yo, I've been listening to listen, like for the last 48 hours, I have been listening to The Spinners, Rubber Band Man, Chopped and Screwed incessantly. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. First off, Lee, thank you for the Cash App. God damn, she wasn't fucking around. She ain't wasting no time. Wait, no sound? Wait. Audio. Okay. Audio's good? Desiree, that might just be you. So we're good? We're good to go? Good to bang out? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I have been The Spinners. Like old school R&B, chopped and screwed. Make it make sense. Okay. Soul. I did not want to like this movie. And I'm going to take my time with this one because, you know, we got to talk about Disney, whatever and whatnot. Once again, thank you, Lee, for the Cash App. We cannot cancel Disney. I'm sorry. Listen, we get it. Walt Disney was a creep. Children go missing from Disney World and Disneyland. I get it. But they make some great movies. The Pixar division, once under John Lasseter, makes some of the darkest yet poignant child-themed movies over the last 20 years. Their movies have gotten increasingly dark, at least to me, for children. You know, like these movies, the adult themes are so heavy, and there's gravitas and there's weight to these movies, and it's like I shouldn't be feeling these emotions in this movie, this animated movie. It got so bad for me, I shit you not. At the end, I was like, yo, I had to beat my chest, like, nigga, don't you do it. You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting there watching this shit, and I'm just like, and I literally had to beat my chest, like, no, nigga, don't do it. Don't you do it. All right, let's get into it. Yo, there's a lot of people in this movie I didn't even know. I recognize voices, but I didn't even bother to check the cast until after I watched the movie. Felicia Rashad played the mother. Richard Ayoade, he was Jerry. I didn't know Graham Norton was Moonwind. Questlove was Curly. I recognize Alice Braga. Alice Braga is from Queen of the South. That series that used to be on USA, the drug dealer movie. I recognize her instantly. And then, of course, you know Tina Fey. So that's all that really matters at this point. Okay. Where am I at? Okay. So let me shout everybody out in the chat real quick. Cindy, what's up? Necessary Evil, what's up? Number 2. Zakiba, Bizlism, Lorenzo, Majis, Dijonay, White number 1's in the building, Edward, Lightfoot, what's happening? Boston Bill, I'm not a troll, bro. I don't know where that came from. I'm not a troll. Chris, my man Chris, East Oakland raised me. Yo, all Pixar movies are creepy for kids. Like, let's just not even play that game, right? Sherry, hey. Althea, I see you. Believe it, I see you. Ayana, hey mama. Here comes Slybenezer Scrooge to ruin Christmas. Wow. That's so messed up. NBC, what's up? Take your man, dude. I hope you're a woman saying this shit. Okay. I got everybody. Nick's in the house. Angela, hey. All right. Soul. there's some problems with this, and I'm sure those guys that secretly hate black women will pick up on this if they watch this movie, because I clearly did. All right, so opening scene, we have Joe, played by Jamie Foxx, or aka Mr. G. He is a band teacher. He gets the gig. The school offers to hire him as the full-time band leader. You know how the saying goes, those who can do and those who can't teach. So this is what we have here, okay? Now, he goes to go visit his mom at her, she's like a seamstress, she does clothes and stuff. So he goes to see her. And then she basically berates him for chasing his musical dreams and wants him to take the teaching gig. Okay? She's like a clothing designer, and there's a store full of women. All the women are in there. And she says, you can stop being a middle-aged man washing underwear in her shop. So, I mean, she just pretty much is like, you need to take this job. You know, pension, healthcare, benefits. Stop chasing the dreams of being a musician like his father. Okay? Joe then gets a call from a former student, Corey, about a chance to go on tour with Dorothea Williams. Dorothea Williams is a big-time jazz player. So, now mind you, this setting takes place in New York. Don't ask me which borough, because I don't recall if they ever mentioned which borough this takes place in. Joe says he could die a happy man if he could perform with Dorothea Williams. So on his way from getting the news, he goes to the club to go meet Dorothea. He auditions for her. She says, "You got the gig." On his way, he's leaving from the club, and he's on the phone. So he avoids death a few times before he meets his ultimate demise. So he missed death missed him the first time with falling bricks. Death missed him the second time from getting ran over twice. And then death missed him for a third time with banana peels. But finally he falls into an empty manhole. Now, before last year when we first seen this, the teaser trailer, I was already not ready to like this movie because the thought of having a white woman in the body of a black man, I was already turned off. I was like, I don't even like the premise of that. That shouldn't even sound right. Okay, and I forgot, like, this is that movie. Okay, so then Joe wakes up in the great beyond. It's like outer space. He's on the conveyor. There's the white light. And we all know what you say. Stay away from the white light. So he's on this conveyor. All these souls on this conveyor, and they're going towards the great beyond. Okay? He meets 3 souls that are excited about transitioning. Joe refuses to accept his fate and then runs in the opposite direction, screaming he's not done. And they're like, oh, he must have died tragically. Okay? He then falls off the conveyor. He falls into more darkness, and then he lands in the great before. So you have the great beyond, the after, and then the great before is before you go to Earth. Okay? The great before is aka the Yosemite. It's a place for new souls, brand new souls. Okay, Joe isn't dead, but his body is in a holding pattern. So then he meets a Jenny. There's a bunch of Jennies. Everybody's pretty much named Jenny in the great before. And the great beyond, everybody's pretty much named Terry. They have different personalities and whatever, different speaking voices, but they're all have pretty much the same name in their respective realms. Okay, so then back at the great beyond, Terry, the accountant, he notices a soul is missing. The count is off. Okay, so that's his that's the subplot for him. So then Joe, okay, so back at the great before, he meets Jenny. Jenny gives him the rundown. Souls are programmed with personalities before they get sent to the Earth portal. So there's personalities like excitable, aloof, and why not. Okay, so you have these little baby souls, and she takes them all to different personality centers to get programmed. All right, they're like little children at this point because brand new souls. They're not corrupted. They're fresh. Okay, so then Joe sees the Earth portal and then jumps into it, but is sucked back into the great before. He does it 3 times. Every time he jumps, he gets sucked back in. Does it 3 times, and then he volunteers to go for mentoring. Okay. So then Terry the accountant visits Jerry to alert her or him that the count is off. Terry says 151,000 souls go to the great beyond a day. Okay, he's really into his numbers. Joe then goes to mentoring. There's a film playing describing the soul personality programming. Okay, so they give these little examples, like your propaganda flicks. Okay, one soul, this little kid baby soul. He says, I'm programmed to be a manipulative megalomaniac who's intensely opportunistic. And then the announcer says, oh, this one's going to be a handful, but that's Earth's problem. Okay, so they play it off like a joke. They have these little badges, and the little spots on the badges indicate each personality, each achievement. And then once you get your Earth badge fully stamped, once you get your spark, then you're able to transfer to the portal and go to Earth and then go into whoever's body is waiting for you. Okay. All souls are missing a spark. It's a passion that completes their program so they can go to Earth. Okay. It's not the sole reason, but it helps them complete their training to go to Earth. The next souls are matched with soulmates. So former souls that stay behind or go to the great beyond are matched up with little fresh baby souls for grooming. Okay, to kind of learn the ropes and the tricks of how it's going to be. All right. So then Joe steals a doctor's ID. The doctor's ID he stole was a Nobel Prize winning child psychologist named Dr. Borgen. He's matched with soul number 22, which is the Tina Fey character, the white woman. But okay, these are all souls, so souls are supposed to be androgynous, colorless, raceless, all that good stuff. Okay, so soul 22 doesn't want to go to Earth. It's a rebel. It doesn't want to be at Earth at all. It doesn't want to be in a meat suit. Okay, it's been there for thousands of years. And it's gone through thousands of mentors. Some of 22's mentors was Mother Teresa, Copernicus, Muhammad Ali, and Marie Antoinette. And they've pretty much all given up on 22. That's just how defiant it is in not getting its patch to go to Earth. Okay. 22 says Earth is not worth the trouble. Joe then reveals to 22 he's not a mentor. So then 22 reveals Joe's past life, his love for jazz, his many rejections for playing gigs. So he's taking a lot of L's once you do the flashbacks of Joe's life. Okay, so then Joe, after watching all these flashbacks, he's like, my life was meaningless. So then he sees his body in the hospital bed because he's currently in a coma. Because he's not dead. So his soul is still tethered to his body because he's not dead. The soul is just not there. But his body is still in a coma in the hospital bed. Okay? So then Joe plans to turn 22's badge into an Earth badge. So then he could use the badge to go to Earth and get back into his body. That's the ultimate plan. Okay? So then 22 tells Joe the great before is hypothetical. So then she explains, she changes her voice. She talks like him, talks like somebody else, looks like somebody else. So it's all hypothetical. Okay. Joe then sees a flock of souls get crushed by a building and he's startled. She says, no, you can't crush a soul here. That's what life is for. Yeah. In fact, she said that's what life on Earth is for. Okay, so then they go to the Hall of Everything. And the Hall of Everything is where they try to find... this is where you go to find your spark. So you try to find 22 spark. So they try cooking, aviation, business, politics, artistry, everything to try to find her spark, her passion. Okay, so then Joe is ready to send 22. Oh, so Jenny shows up. Jenny's like, hey, well, look, you've been here for a few thousand years. We haven't found your spark. It's time for you to go to the great beyond. To go over, to cross over. She's like, no, 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 give me one more chance. I'll find a way to find a spark. Okay? So then 22 takes Joe to the zone. The zone is a space between the physical and the spiritual. So the zone for us people, athletes or former athletes or whatever, when you're in that moment, when everything is still, whatever craft you're into, the Michael Jordan, when he said, I was in the zone and the rim looked like a big old buck and I couldn't miss. That's what it is. So when you go into the zone, you see all these little, you see these people, they're souls, and they're in their craft and they're in their moment, they're in their element. So, so one lady was reciting, she was in a play in the zone. There's a tattooist, she was in the zone. Okay, so if you disturb them in real time, they'll mess up because they're in the zone. All right. So then they meet the mystics. They're called Mystics Without Borders, like Doctors Without Borders. Okay, they help lost souls find their way. Okay, lost souls can't let go of their anxieties and obsessions. They become lost and disconnected from life. Okay, they help a hedge fund manager get reconnected with his life, and he quits his job. So there's a one loose soul. They wrangle him. They do. They circle around him. They play the music. Do the chakra prawn chakra, and then his soul goes back into his body, and he wakes up at his desk like, what am I doing here? So he's like, oh my God, I'm alive. And he throws everything off the desk, and he quits his job because now he's reconnected with life. Okay, the mystics are not dead. The mystics are in a current meditative state. So they're like your yogis and your shamans. They're regular people, but they're currently meditating in a deep meditative state. This is how they're able to go to the great beyond, okay, or the great before, and they ride a ship and they help rescue lost souls. All right. So then Moonwind says the zone and lost souls are kind of one and the same. When joy becomes an obsession, one becomes disconnected from life. Joe has to tap in and find his body. He sees his body is in a coma in the hospital bed. Joe then gets excited and rushes into the portal to get back into his body. He takes 22 with him. And then they're back in the physical, except 22 is in Joe's body. And then Joe ended up in the body of a cat. It was like a therapy cat that was on Joe's lap. So then 22 fell into Joe's body because it had no soul. Joe fell into the cat because the cat had no soul. There's a cut scene of the cat's soul on the conveyor going to the great beyond. That was funny. Okay. So then 22 calls Joe's body a meat stick. 22 and Joe then leave the hospital. 22 is overwhelmed with all the sights and sounds of the physical realm, the 3D realm. Okay, they come across one of the mystics in real life, which is Moonwind. Moonwind, he twirls the signs on the street corner for his, I would assume it was his wife. He's a hippie guy. Okay. And then he says, well, yeah, I can get you back into your right bodies. We have to do an astral transmigration. Okay. Meanwhile, Terry the accountant is on the trail of Joe and 22. 22 and Joe, they run across Dorothea. Now, mind you, when they come across Dorothea, Joe is still in his hospital garb, staying from eating pizza. Okay, so this is all new for 22. So mind you, Joe the cat is in the cat's body, wrapped around Joe's neck, telling 22 in Joe's body what to do and where to go. So they see Dorothea. He hurries her off in the cab. She's like this. She's just looking like this nigga's crazy. Okay. So then after that, Dorothea, the jazz lady that he had the gig for, decided to replace Joe with another player. They get back to Joe's apartment. Curly leaves a voicemail for Joe saying, hey man, come to the club early, put on a nice suit to try and change Dorothea's decision about bringing you back onto the band. Okay. So then one of Joe's students named Connie shows up to his apartment, and she says, "Hey, I'm ready to quit. I quit. I want to quit the band. School's pointless." All right. So then, of course, 22, being Joe, opens the door to conversing with the little girl, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you believe school's pointless too?" And here's a message. So then, 22, as Joe 22. Okay, Joe then tells 22 tells the girl, "Yeah, school's pointless." And then she begins to quote. She says, "As my former mentor George Orwell says, school is a state-sponsored education." Is like the rattling of a stick inside a swill bucket. The ruling class's core curriculum stifles dissent. It's an age-old tactic. End quote. So then Connie, the little girl, plays her piece for Joe because she thinks it's Joe, and she says, "Hey, I'm gonna play this piece. Tell me what you think. If you think if I'm pretty good." She plays the piece. 22, being Joe, is like, "Oh, she's really good," and Connie decides to stay in the band. Okay. So then Terry finds out that Joe is the missing soul. So now he knows the soul's name. Okay. So then Terry goes to Earth to find Joe and 22. Joe messes up trying to cut 22's hair, give him a haircut. Mind you, Joe is in the body of a cat. They go to a barbershop to go see Dez. Dez is Joe's barber. Now here's where things kind of got weird for me, which I did not like. So Joe learned of Dez's backstory listening to 22 interact with Dez. So 22 in Joe's body, getting a haircut, asking all these crazy questions about, oh, this and that, because now in the great beyond, or the great before, they're taught that souls are programmed, and this is what you're supposed to do when you get to Earth. And that was not the case with Dez. Dez was like, "Hey, I was in the Navy. I wanted to be a veterinarian." And she's like, "Well, what happened?" Well, I got the Navy. I had a family. Things had happened. I kind of fell into this, and I like to do this. And she says, "Well, you're happy? You're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're calling." And he says, "No, I'm extremely happy because now I get to make people look good. I get to listen to their stories." So it all worked out. So then, watching this interaction, Joe in the cat's body is like, "I never knew all this about my barber Dez," right? So then 22 is like, "Oh, it was good talking to you." And then she says, "Well, how come we didn't know this before about you?" Dez says, "Well, you never asked. All you ever did was talk about jazz." So it took, this is where I didn't like. So it took this, basically this, the soul of a white woman in a black man's body to relate to another black man, while the original soul owner, the black man, is in the body of a cat, and he's learning all this. He's seeing his brother man in a different light, while someone else is in his body interacting with this person that he's been knowing for years. That I did not like. That is what I was afraid of in this movie when I first seen this trailer last year. So my fears were kind of, reaffirmed to a certain extent. Okay. So then Terry gets Joe sent at the hospital and goes to his apartment, and then he spots Joe and 22. So then he snatches who he thought was Joe. He drags him down, takes his soul out, and says, "Oh, you're the wrong person." He says, "Oh, go back in your meat suit." Puts his soul back in the dude's meat suit, put him back in the third dimension, and the dude is just shook because he saw something he shouldn't have seen, and he's just shaking and trembling, and he's scared of everything. Okay. 22 then splits Joe's suit and has to go to his mom's to get the pants fixed. Okay, so then Joe and 22 show up at mom's clothing store, seamstress shop, whatever you want to call it. The mom already knows that Joe got the gig for Dorothea. She refuses to fix his suit and then berates him even further. So then the cat, Joe, is telling 22 in his body what to say to his mom, you know, and to respond to her accusations. And then she says, well, you can't eat dreams. And then 22 begins to, you know, speak for Joe. Then she says, well, then I don't eat. And then 22 says, his life won't matter. It won't amount to anything if he doesn't pursue his passion. So this exchange. So he's like, well, you know, you let dad pursue his passion. And she said, yeah, but I had this shop to cover him while he was out pursuing his passion. Okay. She was the backup plan in case that didn't come through. And she said, you don't have a backup plan. That was her point. But the way she was carrying her point across to him, it was in a very negative, very disconcerting way. Okay. So after that, his mom gives Joe his dad's old suit. And then Joe, or 22, begins to have a change of heart about being on Earth. So then there's one scene where 22 in Joe's body is sitting on a stoop, and it's taking in all the sights and sounds, and I mean really processing the sights and sounds. The little twig acorn thingy, twirly thingy things, the helicopter things is flying down. She catches one, and then she looks down the street. Of course, it's got to be, it's obviously it's a black borough. Okay, I don't want to say it's Harlem or Queens, but she looks down, there's black people laughing, and then she looks around, there's other black people, so she's taking this thing all in. Okay, hold up. Okay, so then okay, 22 wants to find its spark on Earth and not at the youth seminar, and then runs off before they can perform the astral transmigration, because Joe's like, okay, look, you got to go back. I need my body back because he's got to be at the club early to meet Dorothea. She's like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna find my spark here on Earth. She runs off. So then Terry captures the both of them. They're back at the great beyond, the great before. 22 ends up getting her Earth pass, but then she gives it to Joe. Then she walks off saying, I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough. Okay. So then Jenny tells Joe, a spark isn't a soul's purpose. You basically had it backwards. You had it all wrong. So then Joe goes back to Earth. He arrives back in his body. Joe goes to the club and tells Dorothea, look, if you don't hire me, you'll be making the biggest mistake of your career. Like, I'm meant to play. And she's like, oh, you're arrogant. Oh, okay. And she takes him back into the band. So then they perform that night to a standing ovation, including his mom and her friends. Joe then realizes after the show, after they're outside, it's him and Dorothea, they're outside, and he realizes he doesn't feel different. Dorothea tells Joe the story of the fish. Young fish asks the old fish, hey, I'm looking for the ocean. Old fish says, well, you're in it. Young fish says, no, this is water. What I want is the ocean. Now here's where things get even more weird or creepy. Synchronicity. The universe is never wrong. Form Runner did a live stream earlier on IG, and he made a point about happiness and living in the moment. Okay, now mind you, I caught it after. Like, I was halfway through my breakdown and I caught it after. So then the next scene, we have Joe going back in those very same moments, reliving these moments with his dad, when he was young, with his mom, when he was playing, and he began to relive those moments. So instead of chasing happiness, he found happiness in those moments. Because the point the Form Runner said he made was, he says, you know, when your friend asks you, remember when we did this and this and that? And you say, yeah. And he said, and Form says, well, remember, when they bring that up, they were living in that moment. The happiness was in that moment. Okay? So I was so bugged. I was like, holy God, this is so fucking bugged. Okay, so then he begins appreciating living in those moments. And then Moonwind, he finds Joe in the zone. Okay? 22 became a lost soul. He's like, yo, 22, she done ran off. She became a lost soul. So Moonwind and Joe go looking for her. Mind you, they're in the zone. All right? So then they track 20. They chase 22 down. She goes to she runs through the academy. They run through a building, and they finally get to the portal, the Earth portal, where you jump into the portal. And Joe confronts 22 all of her negative thoughts. So for thousands of years, 22 is nothing but these self-negative thoughts and doubts about herself. And then the final negative entity was when Joe himself said, oh, walking, because she learned to walk. She said, I'm really good at walking. Maybe I could just, I could just be jazzing it up. I could learn to walk. And he says, well, walking isn't really a skill. That's not really living. That's just doing. And that was the final negative straw that broke her back. And it was the final negative entity that he had to kind of punch through to get to her. So then he has the Earth badge. He places the little twirly things that, the trees. He places that in 22's hand. Okay? And 22 has her spark. Her spark is that she's ready to live. Now she's ready to experience the adventures on Earth. So then Joe gives her his Earth badge. The original badge that was hers that she gave to him. He gives it back to her, completed. And she's like, well, you don't have to do this. He's like, I know, I've lived. He said, come on, let's go. So they're jumping into the portal. She says, well, you can't go with me. He says, I know, I'll just go as far as I can. Now this is where she almost fucked me up. Because the music is playing and it's very sad and somber. And I'm like, oh my God, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. So they jump off and they're falling into the earth. She's eyes are closed. He's like, no, look at it. Look at it. As they're going, speeding towards the earth. She continues to descend. And then he goes back into the great beyond. So he's back at the conveyor. He accepts his fate. He's going to the great beyond. And then Jenny shows up. And Jenny's like, you got a minute? And he's like, yeah. And she says, our whole job is to inspire souls. And what you did for 22 inspired us. So we decided to give you another chance. And then she says, just watch where you're walking next time. So she opens the portal. He goes back in. He goes back to Earth. He goes back into his body. And then as he's walking into the portal, she asks him, well, what are you going to do? And he says, I'm going to live every minute. And he goes back into his body. He walks outside and breathes in the air. End scene. Nigga. Fucking Pixar movies, man, the goddamn devil. This shit was sad. I was like, this is not a kid's movie. This is not a kid's movie. No. Your kids are going to be like, what is this? Mommy, daddy, like, what the fuck? This is not a kid's movie. This was deep. This was deep. This was deep. This was deep. Oh my goodness. It was, I wanted to not like this movie. And like I said, the elements with the mother-son dynamic, especially the black mother, black son dynamic. Of course, the daddy got to be dead. I'd rather him be dead than be in jail. Okay. And then the other part of the theme I don't like is you have the man, the father, chasing a dream, right? Whether it's he's successful or futile, but it's the woman that has to hold everything together. And I'm just like, how many times have we seen this narrative be spun out? So the man is, yeah, he's got a family, but he'd rather chase his dream and do what makes him happy. And it's the wife that has to hold everything down. And then years later, the child grows up and dad is nowhere to be found. He's either dead or whatever the fuck happened to dad. Yeah, and then the mother's like, well, I don't want you to be like your father, so I'm going to try and steer your life into this direction. And then the child rebels because I want to be like my dad. I want to do what my dad does. I have my dad's skill set. You understand? That's the part I did not like. So, I think I covered everything in this movie. I don't think I missed anything. And if you say I did, you're bullshitting. Because I pretty much covered every goddamn thing in this film. It was good, though. It was good. Who was the See, here you go with that bullshit. Anywho. So, yeah. Wait. If you're a woman, the end will get you. It will get you. It will get you. Yeah, I'm a check out Wonder Woman when I get to it. I'm in no rush. But yeah, that was Disney Pixar's Soul. It redeemed itself in the end. Because like I said, I did not want to like this movie at all. So